All eyes will be on the Gambia this week to see whether or not Adama Barrow will take his place as president of the Gambia. In the meantime, Donald Trump, as we said earlier, will be sworn in as the 45th president of the United States. U.S. President Barack Obama gave his final address to Americans last week. Probably one of the last times we'll see Mr. Obama become so emotional about his wife and children and people he's worked with in the last 8 years. As America anxiously awaits its new president, here's a review of Mr. Obama's foreign policy while in office. U.S. President Barack Obama was not just a president burdened with expectations from Americans, he was burdened with the expectations of the rest of the world.
Give them a big round of applause.
Fulfilling those expectations were nearly impossible, and as he prepares to leave the White House, analysts credit him with a modest record of foreign policy successes garnered through the patient use of diplomacy, especially when it came to the Iran nuclear deal, reconciliation with Cuba, and a landmark climate change accord.
I do think he wanted to reorient the emphasis in American foreign policy away from the Middle East to some extent and towards broader global issues, towards the rise of Asia, towards the challenges of climate change, and gradually wean us away from some of these conflicts. But he wasn't a pacifist because he's also the one that tripled U.S. combat forces in Afghanistan and then carried out about 10 times as many drone strikes on his watch as President Bush had done, and of course authorized the bin Laden raid as well.
Obama's promise to reset relations with the Islamic world made during a landmark speech in Cairo in June 2009 was perhaps his most ambitious and least realized undertaking. The ongoing war on terror steered the president's decision-making abroad in many ways, throughout his tenure, forcing him to remain engaged in Afghanistan and Iraq. Just a month into his term, Obama authorized a surge of 17,000 troops in the hopes that it would help achieve sufficient security to permit America's withdrawal.
Hey, hold what you got. Full security to the west.
Obama had better success in Cuba. While of modest strategic importance, the re-establishment of diplomatic relations with Havana in July 2015 illustrates a signature attribute of Obama's foreign policy, a patient reliance on diplomacy. While Mr. Obama has been attacked by Trump as the worst deal-maker in U.S. history, some analysts think he has made his mark as a deft negotiator.
U.S. foreign policy should be largely diplomatic. And Obama understood this, and he was willing to negotiate hard on difficult subjects like normalization of relations with Cuba, like Iran, containing the Iranian nuclear threat. And I think that's, both of those instances are signs of his determination and persistence that led to an improvement.
Obama and the EU's failure to follow through from the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi to an adequate plan to stabilize Libya led to the country's fracturing. Libya's maelstrom would claim the life of U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens, who was killed in Benghazi on September 11, 2012, in an attack on the consulate.
We give you thanks for the lives and the selfless service of these men.
That incident will come to symbolize the administration's disengagement when all but the most vital U.S. interests are at stake. It would also haunt Hillary Clinton, who was then Secretary of State, as she contemplated another campaign for the White House.
Thank you.
But the woes of Tripoli paled in comparison to the catastrophe that would overtake Syria while the administration prevaricated. Obama's unwillingness or inability to prevent the collapse of Syria will perhaps be seen as his greatest foreign policy failure. Obama has been defensive in interviews about his role in Syria, maintaining that the administration had no good options in preventing President Bashar al-Assad from crushing pro-democracy protests and then stopping the inevitable slide into war. Obama's engagement with Russia has brought it deeper into the Syrian conflict, with Moscow now fully backing Assad militarily as he attempts to retake Syria. Critics argue that Obama has ceded ground to Putin, allowing an emboldened Russia to assert itself in the Middle East and in Crimea. But Obama apparently believes that he has outmaneuvered Putin strategically, even if Russia gained a tactical victory. Seeing no vital U.S. interest at stake in Syria, Obama believes Putin has erred by entering a quagmire, as he said in October 2015. As for the Obama administration's policy towards Africa, scores of Africans are enrolled into various programs under the Mandela Washington Fellowship Program. President Obama launched Power Africa to bring together technical and legal experts, the private sector, and governments from around the world to work in partnership to increase the number of people with access to power on the continent. It has 43 tracked transactions in Nigeria and has generated 6,477 megawatts of power. Mixed reactions reflect how the president has been perceived the last 8 years, but one thing is clear: America has never had a president like him. Still ahead after the break, Nigeria specifically cuts diplomatic ties with the Republic of China, or as we know it, Taiwan. Do stay with us.